round of applause for Vihari Parbhu. People.
So, I have a few, I had this actually set up before. Anyway, I'll set it up before, because I'm going to show a video. Oh, thank you, Parbhu.
It's a Toronto thing.
It's a Toronto thing. Oh, no, in India they do it all the time. Yeah, today's kind of a potpourri of a few different things, but tying things together. I'm going to show a video that I think really is, I think you'll like it, and it fits in very much with Uttama and Partha's. I think we should come up with a name for them. Like, they have Brangelina, right? Even though they got divorced. So we're like, I don't know, Partama or something. I don't know. We have to, come up with something like that, right?
Upma is what all the kids call me.
Yeah, I tell people I'm an Upma Adhikari. I like Upma. But a few things from the other day. This idea that, some of us feel sometimes that, gosh, are there as many conflicts or more conflicts in our society than in the outside world? And like I said, that's not really so much my experience, having worked in a number of organizations. And at the same time, because I work with a number of faith-based organizations, faith-based conflicts tend to be more intense than any others. I mean, at the same time that there's more of a possibility of peace because they have, remember that superordinate goal, they have this goal of loving Krishna, and they have all the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or the Quran or whatever. But we pour a lot of our identity into the faith that we belong to. Especially most of us, or many of us at least, are converts, right? And so that means, we chose this. And so we pour a lot of our faith, and I'll just use the same example I did the other day. If we poured a lot of our identity into an organization that we just thought was so avant-garde and cool and liberal and all that, and then someone else pours all their heart and soul and their identity into something that was super conservative and Pakka and Vedic to the max, and we both are in the same organization. And our identity is very, we're not totally identifying as, I think it was Krishna's Kaviraj who quoted Jivera Swarupahaya Krishna Nitya. We're not fully identifying as Krishna's servants, so we still have our identity in that sense. And here's this other person who's put tons of their identity in, and we are totally looking at the same organization differently. I mean, we do, right? For a lot of us, we changed our name, we changed our hairdo, we changed our clothing, right? Okay, our friendship. We did a lot of our identity we put into it. So it's not unusual. That could be a song by Tom Jones, but I won't sing. It's not unusual that that's totally my mind. It's not unusual that they can be intense sometimes. For that reason, that we just put so much of our identity into being a part of a faith like that. And the other thing I was thinking of, I think it was Vishaka was, we were talking about emotionally toned words, right? And I just remember one time, I think it's a little less now than in the 70s and 80s, but we have an ISKCON lingo. And it's kind of funny to outsiders sometimes. And one time a friend of mine, Jaini Thai Parbhu and I, we had a long drive. And so we tried to have a conversation. And the whole conversation was exclusively ISKCON lingo. It was so much fun, Because you'll say, we just said, Prabhu, I'm really fried. Well, you got to, just... get fired up, Prabhu, and do huge and do the needful, and what's your program? That was we laughed at that. We always say, Prabhu, what's your program? Isn't that a kind of a standard? And it's not the kind of thing in the West, in the outside world, people go up to you. What's your program? Right? Or I remember one time a devotee said, I'm fried, and I said, well, what do you mean? Are you fearful or unhappy or agitated? No, I'm just fried. So sometimes we also use words that aren't so, some of our sayings aren't very expressive, but they're also kind of fun to make fun of. What are some other cool ISKCONisms? Yes, Melody?
Off the altar.
Off the altar.
That was totally
The only
off
religion
the
that
wall.
can determine if ladies.
Yeah, off the altar. All right, what else?
Moved out?
Blooped. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Nobody bloops anymore, though. They just kind of,
Go on the fringe.
yeah, no, fringy, that's another one, fringy.
It's gone friendly.
ISKCON friendly.
Who's your authority?
Who's your authority?
Sushi Kid.
Sushi Kid, yeah, that's a good one, Sushi Kid. Yeah.
Arna sent her son, he was gonna go on the bus, first tour. So she sends him to the pharmacy to get a few items, and he comes back and, Mom, I can't believe it. These people don't even know what a Sushi Kid is.
Yeah, Sushi Kid. Any others?
All for you pronounce?
What's that?
All for you pronounce?
Oh, yeah, Dandava pronouns is one. Of course, we got that from Prabhupada. What else?
Stool.
Stool.
My sister, girl came back.
And the stool room.
Girl came back from school, said, Mom,
What was that?
this girl came back, our godsister, her daughter, was on school, she said, Mom, it's not stool, our teacher said it's feces.
Any more? We could have fun doing this all day probably, but yeah, it's, so you have to be a little careful because sometimes we'll see, devotees, using those words with non-devotees like, huh? So with Maharaj was, Bhakti Marg Swami was talking about relatable, so that includes language. And like we said, Krishna is Uttama Shloka Gunana Varnam, one who's described in choice words. So we should use diction, and well, not diction's the wrong word. Word choice is important. It convey, different words convey different meanings. And the tricky thing sometimes is different meanings in different cultures. Right? So, so I'm trying to think of rascal, right? Because rascal, in at least when I grew up, rascal was kind of cute.
Yeah.
You little, there was a TV show, The Little Rascal, or The Little Rascals. They were kind of cute. But rascal in India is a heavy, at least when Prabhupada was, it was like,
It's the worst thing you can say.
what was that?
I knew a little Hindi, see a little bit of Sanji. So somebody was cheating this devotee in one bazaar, and I said, not cut my parts, and don't be a rascal. I got so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. The trick you can chastise, I learned this living in India for 21 years. You can chastise someone, but you have to always do it with a smile. You say, that is such a high price, are you kidding? You say to in Loy Bazaar, as long as you're smiling, you can get away with it, but if you, so communications is super important. So I'm going to show you a 13-minute video, torture, right? But when I've showed it to the devotee audiences, I say, what do you remember from the 3 days of my talk? I remember that video. Thanks a lot. But it's really well done, and it follows perfectly in Uttama and Partha's presentation, right? Because because they were talking about, you were talking about how listen to people and use empathy, and so this it talks about the advice monster. Okay, so. And obviously it's available on YouTube because this is going to be on YouTube. Let's see.
Could we dim the lights?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Does anyone know how to do it? This is the gentleman's name. He's got several good books. The Coaching Habit and I think The Advice Monster, maybe, or something about advice. Okay, and hopefully this is all going to work. I'd like to set up the microphone so I don't have to keep holding it. Like this. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
So I caught up with a friend of mine the other day. I love her. She's smart, she's brilliant, she's talented. And after we grabbed our coffees and we did the usual warm-up chit-chat, Shannon looked at me and she said, Michael, you're a good guy. I need your help. I need your advice. And my monster was delighted. She started telling me what was going on, and I started to pretend to listen. Because quite frankly, my advice monster already knew exactly what I wanted to tell her. But I'm pretty good at the fake, active listening. You know, you tip your head on the side, you nod, you look engaged, yet caring, yet concerned. Small, meaningless words of encouragement. Mm-hmm, yeah, sure, yeah, right. Oh, you go, girlfriend, exactly. But honestly, my advice monster's like, could we just hurry this up, please? The time is short. Finally, Shannon finished. So finally, I was able to share my brilliant advice. And make no mistake, it was brilliant. Shannon tipped her head on the side, looked engaged, yet caring, yet concerned, started nodding, made small, meaningless words of encouragement. Mm-hmm, yeah, maybe, okay, yeah, nice idea.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins.
Hi.
Listen, I've spent the
Advertising.
past 43 years now working with people all over the world in 100 countries to show them how
Tony Robbins of all people.
Honestly, my advice, my help was going nowhere. My advice monster had sabotaged the conversation. Again. Now, this isn't just a Michael thing, it's not even a mansplaining thing. You, all of you, you know your advice monster. Somebody starts telling you about something, you don't really know the situation, you don't really know the people involved, you certainly don't have the full context, you definitely don't have the technical specifications, and after about 10 seconds, your advice monster's like, oh, I've got something to say here. You know, research tells us that medical doctors' advice monsters tend to interrupt their patients after about 11 seconds. But that's not really a medical thing, it's a human thing. Now, I can see some of you are looking at me and you're thinking to yourself, Michael, it's true. Other people's advice monsters, very annoying, really, really pretty irritating. But my advice is, well, honestly, pretty fantastic. And what's wrong with advice anyway? Well, look, there is nothing wrong with advice. Advice is a key part of civilization. I mean, TEDx, it is one large forum for advice. The problem isn't with advice. The problem is when giving advice becomes our default response. And we all have this ingrained way of behaving. For most of us, it's become a habit. It's become an advice-giving habit. Or, for short. And it turns out there are 3 ways that advice giving goes bad. The first 2 are kind of connected. Here's the first challenge with advice giving. You're busy solving the wrong problem. This happens all the time. We get seduced into thinking that the first challenge that shows up is the real challenge. It almost never is. It's people's best guess, it's their first hypothesis, it's a stab in the dark. But it's really rare that the first challenge is the real challenge. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that somehow miraculously you are finding and working on the real challenge. Here's the second issue with advice giving. Your advice is not nearly as good as you think it is. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh no, Michael, no. My advice is magnificent. Well, I'd encourage you to go watch all those TED videos on cognitive biases that will explain just how bad your advice normally is. Particularly if you think you give good advice. But those first 2 are just you kind of wasting people's time and life and resources and money. So, no big deal. The third issue about giving advice cuts a little deeper, and it cuts both ways. If you are on the receiving end of advice, if you're on the receiving end of somebody's advice monster, you're constantly getting the message that you can't figure this out yourself. And that cuts away your sense of competence and your confidence and your sense of autonomy. And if you're on the other side of the equation, if you have an advice monster, and if I can be clear, you all have an advice monster, well, forget about the fact that you're disempowering people, and forget about the fact that you're a bottleneck to everybody around you. Just that added responsibility of having to have all the answers and to save the person and to save the day, it's exhausting and it's frustrating and it's overwhelming. Now, I can see you looking at me and going, yeah, Michael, point well made, we get this, I get it, I understand, yeah, fair enough. And I know you do get it, it's straightforward, you get this. In theory. In practice, this is still how you're showing up on an everyday basis. That. So what's going on with that? Well, it's your advice monster. You keep feeding it, and it is insatiable. Somebody starts talking, and your advice monster looms up out of the dark and goes, oh, I'm going to add some value to this conversation. Yes, I am. Here I go. You have to learn to tame your advice monster. And to tame it, you have to understand it. And it turns out your advice monster has 3 different personas. And you listen up, you'll hear the one that resonates most for you. The first persona of the advice monster is tell it. Tell it. It's the loudest of the 3. It has convinced you that the only way that you add value is to have the answers. To have all the answers. To have all the answers to all the things. If you don't have all the answers, then you fail. Anybody kind of know this one? Yeah, I thought as much. The second advice monster, a little more subtle, it's called save it. Save it has put its arm around you and gone, your job, your only job, is to rescue everybody. Don't let anybody stumble, struggle, have a difficult time. Don't let anybody fail. If anybody struggles at all, you fail. Anybody know this one? Any parents in the room, for instance? Exactly. The third of the advice monsters, the sneakiest of the 3, is control it. Control it has convinced you that the only way you win is to maintain control at all times. Don't let go the grip of anything. If anybody else takes over control even a little bit, then you and they will definitely fail. Anybody know control it? That's my favorite one personally. And in fact, there's something that connects all 3 of these personas. And this is an important point. In that singular moment, when your advice monster is in control, you are saying that you are better than the other person. You're better than the other person. You're saying that they're not up to it. You're saying they're not good enough. You're saying they're not smart enough, wise enough, fast enough, moral enough, experienced enough. You're basically saying that they're not good enough. But it's not only the other person that is diminished in this moment when your advice monster is in control. You're diminished as well. Because when your advice monster is in control, you lose that connection to your humanity. You lose that connection to your empathy and your compassion and your sense of vulnerability. You start using your answers as your armor. Now, I was going to give you a quick little talk about the power of empathy and compassion and vulnerability, and then I thought to myself, Brene Brown.
She's a famous person.
Oh, the Dalai Lama. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I think this ground's been pretty much covered. So, rather than that, let me give you a quick primer on how you might go about taming your advice monster. And what you're looking to do is replace an old habit, the advice-giving habit, with a new habit. Can you stay curious a little bit longer? It's as simple and as difficult as that. Can you stay curious a little bit longer? How do you stay curious? Well, questions are the kindling of curiosity. They're the light that holds back that darkness of the advice monster. So let me share with you the 3 questions I wished I'd asked Shannon when we were in that cafe together. The first question is this: what's the real challenge here for you? What's the real challenge here for you? It's the focus question. It recognizes that at the start of a conversation, neither of you really know what's going on. You just both think you do.
Neither.
Warning, don't believe the AI training hype until you watch this entire video.
Well, let's watch the entire video now.
Vantage Point AI, the leading market forecast.
So not only does what's the real challenge here for you keep your advice monster at bay, It repositions you to say the most important thing I can be doing here is to help you find the really important issue, not to provide the fast, wrong answer, which is what happens right now. The second question that I wish I'd asked Shannon is, and what else? And what else? So the acronym is AWE. It's literally an awesome question. And what else has it as the insight that the first answer they give you is never their only answer, and it's rarely their best answer. So when you ask, and what else, not only does it tame your advice monster, but it helps you go deeper and further on any question that you ask. So before I give you the third question, which I think you're going to like, let me just show you how these two questions can play really well together. So we're going to do something live right here with us. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a real challenge that's going on for you right now. It can be big, it can be small, it can be about life, it can be about work, it can be about a project, it can be a person. I don't mind what it is. Take your best guess. This is a real thing, so actually think of something you can...
Okay, so everyone think of something. Some challenge in your life right now.
Write it down if you want, or you can just keep it in your head. And now you've got that challenge in mind, I'm going to ask you a question. Here it is. Thinking of that challenge, what's the real challenge here for you? What's the real challenge here for you? Yeah. I can see people working, I can hear brains ticking over, this is great. Stuff's opening up for you as you think about that. You're like, okay, I think I've got the real challenge here for me.
Okay, so think of that. What's the real challenge?
That's nice. But we're not done yet.
Oops, what did I do?
Let me ask you another question. Well, what else? What else is a real challenge here for you? Because I know there's more than one thing. So what else? What else is a real challenge here for you? Just notice how that's popping up and how stuff is opening up for you, which is lovely. But of course, we're not done yet. I have another question for you. What else? What else is a real challenge here for you? Because there's still more to be unpacked here. Some of you are like, this is amazing. I didn't know this was all here. Where is this all coming from? Right. I've got one final question for you. I'm going to step to the edge of the red spot here just to make it really dramatic. Now that you've considered all of that and you've done some thinking, what's the real challenge here for you? Exactly, your head explodes. You're like, oh my God, what happened here? And for some of you, you're like, wow, this is really, in a minute or less, just opened up a new way of seeing this. But actually, here's a really key part of this. You'll notice that your answer to the first, what's the real challenge, and your answer to the final one was different. And why that matters is if I've been busy trying to solve that first challenge, I'd be offering up my slightly crappy advice to solve the wrong problem. And honestly, that's what's happening all the time. The third question that I wished I'd asked Shannon back in that cafe, it's a difficult question, but it's so powerful. The question is, what do you want? What do you want? Because when you get clear on what you want, it becomes the foundation for action. It becomes a foundation for progress. When you know what you want, you get to step towards that autonomy and that confidence that we were talking about before. And when that happens, your advice monster really has not much chance. So that's the challenge in front of us, to replace an old habit, the advice-giving habit, with a brand new habit, staying curious a little bit longer. Because when you do that, you begin to empower people, not by giving them the answer, but by helping them find their own answer. Not by rescuing them, but by helping them find their own path. Not by holding on to control on everything, but by giving up some control and inviting others to step in and to step up. And all of that becomes possible when you tame your advice monster. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoops, you don't have to read my emails and all that. Some thoughts on this? See, we tend to, the mantra I like is, do not take on other people's problems as if they were your own. And especially when we're dealing with devotees, Devotees know the philosophy. They've read the Bhagavad Gita. They've been to 5,000 Bhagavatam classes. But, the lower modes are creating, what is it in Madhurya Kadam, fog and clouds. And if we look at this from a Bhagavad Gita point of view, we're helping them come to sattva. And sattva sanjayate jnanam, Krishna says in the Gita. And they start, okay, I won't sing the Jimmy Cliff song, but they start seeing things clearly. I can see clearly. And so it's a different, we're used to preaching, right, and telling people what to do. And I really like this point that, the way I compare it is, let's say we are trying to help somebody, someone new to Krishna consciousness, or an old devotee, or someone who doesn't know anything about Krishna. And sometimes, like our Sunday feast talks, which is appropriate for Sunday, is sometimes it's kind of like or sometimes our preaching is a little bit like a shotgun. You know what a shotgun is? It sends out, like a shrapnel and a, area. But by listening, like he was saying, especially coming to the second or third time, you find out what's really going on in their life, and then it could be more like a laser, and actually going right to the heart of the person, and what, out of this vast philosophy, finding the right part of it that would actually touch their heart. So it's a sattvic thing, being listening, because we already have the answer. I know myself, my feet start tapping, and I'm like, just if you would just stop talking for a while. And in the profession, we talk about helping people help themselves. And of course, it's in a lot of ways it's more powerful when you're asking these kind of questions to a devotee, and they come to I know it's Raja Gun, I know it's this, I know I should apologize, whatever they and it goes deeper if they come to the conclusion themselves in a lot of ways. But the question might be, is this a bona fide approach for preaching? And I should have had this ready, but Prabhupada wrote this amazing letter. It's like, for me, how in each of our services we have letters that really we hold on to our instructions, right? Because it's so whether it's a pujari, and Prabhupada said, the pujari is the most fortunate person in the universe, so for me it's this letter to Balavanta Prabhu in 1972, and can I make it a little bigger? And he was talking about college preaching in America. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Now I want that we shall recruit our men amongst the intelligent class of men, college students. They, because they are little educated, or they have some wealth or fame or ability, so they will be sometimes little puffed up. But that's all right, they deserve it. Isn't that sweet? Yeah. That's all right, they deserve it. It's their karma. Now we shall have to learn the art how to approach such higher class of men and attract them to apply themselves to this Krishna consciousness process of self-realization. That requires much tact, and we shall have to expect to meet all challenges by sharp mind. Now listen to this. But if we remain always absorbed in remembering Lord Chaitanya, how he converted so many intelligent men, even sitting for 3 days, or we sometimes say 7 days and nights, hearing them speak without himself speaking anything. So isn't it, we kind of think, well, they're going to just talk nonsense, so we're going to quote Bhagavad Gita. And here Prabhupada is saying, Lord Chaitanya sat and listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for days, even though he was speaking nonsense. Right? How he converted so many intelligent... and if we remember how Krishna was so much patient to explain everything to Arjuna, even Arjuna was speaking like a fool. So someone's speaking like a fool, and our tendency is to cut him off. Right? In this way, being always tolerant of others, and this is really important, listen to this, and appreciating their points of view. So college students, 1972, their points of view, I remember it was 4 things: sex, drugs, rock and roll, and Mayavad philosophy. Is that a fair estimation for those who were around that time? Pretty much, right? But appreciate their point of view.
It's all nonsense.
It will be easy matter for us to convince them gradually to join us.
But they're showing their mindset in that lower nature. You can't agree with that stuff.
No, but there's a difference between accepting and agreeing. You see, accepting is we can accept that's where they're at. We don't have to agree with them. And the interesting thing is that when you accept someone where they're at, they're often much more willing now to change. I see Parbhu knows this really well. It's my motto, she knows this better than me. So I thought that was, really cool. Some other thoughts on this point? Yes. We'll work our way back.
Well, there's that whole thing that in a discussion, you try and create common points, eh?
Yes.
You don't always want to be right, but you want to convey the sense, I care about you, I care about what's important to you, and let's see what we can share.
Yes. Yes, we find commonality. Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. Someone behind?
Yeah, I think that if we're preachy or we are quick to tell them, this is the philosophy, they can feel judged. They can feel that we're puffed up, and so they're even less likely to listen. So it takes humility, and also another point I wanted to make is it's like.
Well, let's do one at a time.
Okay.
Okay. So you keep the mic. But I can't remember two things. It's like. Yes, I mean we're not saying don't preach. We're saying a few things. One is develop some rapport, because they may need some fire and brimstone, something to wake them up. They may need that, but usually it's good to know what they need before you give them the wrong thing. It's like, could you imagine going to a doctor? Let's say you went to an Ayurvedic doctor. He doesn't take your pulse at all. He just starts writing a prescription, right? But we often do that. We don't listen. So. What was the other thing I was going to say about preaching? Yeah, well, just that. I guess it was just that main point, that at least if we're going to preach, which we should tell people about Krishna. We should, do it in a way that they'll accept it. Yeah.
By showing concern for their own experiences.
Showing concern. Prabhu was saying by showing concern for their own experiences, etc. And I haven't done a thorough. We have people much more expert than me, and Malati is here, and Devi is here, and others. But when I did try to study this in Prabhupada, because you see, we did see Prabhupada cutting people off a lot, and like preaching heavy, especially to his disciples. One thing to remember is in the history of religions, there's never been such an age gap between teacher and student as there was in ISKCON. No other religion ever in the history of mankind has ever had someone who's 75 and people who are mainly 20-somethings. Right? I mean, Jesus, when he was, when did he pass away? How old was he?
33.
Yeah, so so it wasn't such a. Matter of fact, a lot of people are older than him, right? So, but I noticed when I tried to read the conversations books and listen to tapes, when he was talking to people who were more established in society, like that racing car driver and other people, he listened to them, and it wasn't just chop chop, like to a 20-year-old. So, not that it was always chop chop to us also, but. Sometimes I noticed that when he was talking to people who are more established in society, he developed more, he took more time to develop a rapport. I love that one about, let's get off the topic. What's your second point?
Never mind.
Oh, really? Never mind. That's right, then pass it back. Sorry.
So, in line with what you were saying, I've been listening to Srila Prabhupada's morning conversations. And right now I am where Srila Prabhupada is walking with Dr. Patel.
Oh, yeah.
And those are amazing conversations because Srila Prabhupada shows both.
Yes.
He shows tremendous patience, tremendous grace, and then, but there's a point when he brings out the hammer.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Patel leaves for some days, there's no Dr. Patel on Juhu Beach, and then, but he comes back. Exactly what you were saying, for them to realize for themselves what it was.
Yeah, they had a special relationship. Is anyone there here with Prabhupada? Yeah, those are, yeah, Prabhupada. They had some real jovial exchanges.
Yeah, he was almost a contemporary because he was very close to him.
Age-wise, yeah. Anything else on this point? Yes.
This interesting conversation Prabhupada had, I think it was with Isaac Islam, the famous science fiction writer. And this man started explaining to Prabhupada his theory that you should launch rockets into outer space, just like coconuts, they drop a coconut in the water and it goes to the other islands and blah, blah, blah. And he was going on and on. I couldn't believe how long he went on for. I was listening and listening. And at the end, Prabhupada just somehow related Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe like Prabhupada didn't cut him off.
Yeah, nice. Anyone else? Okay, so yes, microphone.
There's also some urge to know anything and everything that's happening around, and tend to also share everything when someone walks into the temple at the very first time. And sometimes the conversations go too long that devotees say, "Hey, you almost initiated this person who came in."
Well, we used to have, I had a rule on book distribution that, because Prabhupada's famous, what were your 3-minute speech to? Right, but if you give them a book. Our rule was you talk to a person as long as you really think they're interested in Krishna consciousness. Like if somebody was ready to, in those days, shave up and move in the temple, we'd spend all day with them. Otherwise, it would look good donation. Shall we carry on to other exciting, interesting things? So he talked a little bit about bias. So I thought we would discuss a little bit about that.
Should we turn the lights on?
Yeah. No, yeah. He talked about confirmation bias in particular. So, the tendency to search for it, look into your heart and see if you ever do this. The tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports your prior beliefs or values. Anyone? Only me? Right? People do this, in the world all the time. You choose, I don't know if this will be relatable for people in Canada, but if you have a certain mindset, you listen to Fox News. If you have a different mindset, you listen to MSNBC. And it creates these kind of ghettos where, because Fox News is going to tell me everything about how great Trump is, and that makes me feel good, and I feel very peaceful, because I like these people, right? And so I only listen to that. I don't hear a word. I would never listen to those guys because they're just liars and cheaters, and vice versa. I only listen, and he's just, and so we like to hear what already we kind of are inclined towards. Right, so that's one aspect of confirmation bias. We can do that also in ISKCON. Right, we listen to so-and-so's lectures because we really like the way, or even when I was a kid, we used to, at Christmas, Hanukkah time, we'd get these boxes of chocolate, and they're in these little individual wrappers, or small, you know what I'm talking about? And half were dark chocolate and half were milk chocolate. And my brother and I only liked the milk chocolate. So by New Year's, all the milk chocolate was gone and there was still the dark chocolate. Right? So we also do that ourselves. We find friends, we find websites, we find friends on Instagram, whatever it is, that agree with us. And we leave the dark chocolate. Now I like dark chocolate better, because I know it's more healthy for me, but so we tend to do that, and that's confirmation bias. It's generally unconscious. It's generally just so natural that we just kind of do it. And it's a cognitive shortcut. that can lead to flawed decisions and inaccurate judgments. Right? If you don't look at the whole picture, we were talking yesterday about, I think it comes up in another slide. I won't bring that up right now. But anyway, it can lead to a lot of challenges. And remember, we talked to Prabhupada's quote about swajati the other day. It is somewhat natural to do this. Right? To be with like-minded people and like we said, but it does have its challenges. And it can lead to this kind of bias.
My monster's coming out. You should bold that one.
Which one?
The one you just read.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll bold that for the next presentation. And we read this yesterday, but the symptom of Rajaguna, that it makes us, it actually, the modes are all, like, it would be really interesting right now. Think of what mode you think you're being affected by right this second. Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas? Yep. Yeah, you can pick two. Yeah, they can be mixed up, right? Yeah, or when you woke up this morning, right? Or when you were at prasadam at breakfast, because there's so much control us there. That's Krishna talks about. Well, first is mentioned the second chapter, then the third chapter, but then 14th, 17th, and 18th. There's so much about the modes of material nature. For a reason. They're very powerful. So the mode of passion really, almost forces us to think in terms of friends and enemies. Prahlad Maharaj, or I like this, I don't like that, and seeing differences. So a little bit more. It causes people to seek out information that supports their existing beliefs. We just talked about that. And what about this one? Ignore or dismiss information that contradicts our beliefs. Have you ever seen that in ISKCON? What wars? Quote wars. Yeah, the quote wars. Yes. Quote wars. Yes. Yeah, and it's incredible. I see this in myself. I see a quote on some topic that that's so good, right? And I know I can sometimes rationalize a quote that doesn't match my point of view that Prabhupada said, if I'm not careful. And does anyone know how to spell rationalize? R-A-T-I-O-N? Oh, it's R-A-T, listen carefully, R-A-T-I-O-N-A-L hyphen L-I-E-S. Rational lies. Okay, yeah, remember that. Right. And if something's ambiguous, it kind of could go both ways, then we interpret it according to the viewpoint that we favor. Right? I'm not going to get into it, but the obvious one is Prabhupada's statement about women Diksha Gurus in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. Everyone, I've seen it being interpreted this way and that way, according pretty much, not necessarily based on philosophy or anything, but based on our pre-existing view. All right, so here's an example. Vaccines! Oh! But, some devotees receive their information from mainstream medical, they just think, we're saving lives. And others get it from I'm using air quotes here, alternative resources. And most were already convinced one way or another before reading either of those sources. Right? It was a big thing a few years ago. I didn't follow it because I don't use social media, but I heard it was ubiquitous. I love that word. How about this one? You like or dislike a political leader. We already said that. You get your information from this source or that source. Right? So these are all examples of cognitive bias. And the idea in a lot of these things, as Uttama Mataji was Uttama Prabhu was bringing up the other day. I don't know, Prabhu Mataji, I have to remember where I am. Am I in India? Am I in Canada? I always think...
I'm happy with both.
Okay. How about Devi? Does that work?
That works too.
All right, Devi, yeah. Okay. I've heard that's like the I've seen Radhanath Swami use that. It's kind of like, okay, is anyone going to criticize me? It's kind of in the middle. But we know Prabhu was bona fide because Malati got letters from Prabhupada. Famous letters. Dear Malati Prabhu. Yeah, so a lot of these things, like the advice monster, like these other, it's the first step is to be cognizant of them, and that's what we're trying to do here. That process. At first you're unconscious, incompetent. You don't even know that you don't know, right? Like how many of us at breakfast were thinking of cognitive bias? Raise your hand. Very good. So now we become conscious that we don't think about it much. And then you work on it and you say, oh yeah, I should be careful about my biases and different ones. Okay, so then we become consciously competent. And the last one, the best one is if you can be unconscious competent. You just naturally do it. Like riding a bicycle now. You don't, hopefully most of us are driving a car. You practically don't even think about it because you're just competent without having to. But there was a time, if you remember when you first got your learner's permit, or you first got behind a wheel for the first or riding a bicycle and you saw a rock and you were so afraid of falling over or something. Or tripping over. Yeah. All right. And if social media is, algorithms, you ever heard of algorithms? They are not your friend necessarily, So there's something called filter bubbles. But the idea is that, these guys, Instagram, Facebook, I didn't bring it with me. I'm reading this really interesting book called Digital Minimalism. And they talk about, they make money the longer we stay on their platforms. That's how they make their money. And they said that and I won't get into a whole thing about it, but the real insidious thing that really changed social media was that they just added this one thing, the like button. And then everyone started getting into a whole mindset, I have so many friends that they like this, or I need to get so many likes for posting this video or whatever. But, we get into these ghettos, in other words, into these places where we agree with people who are posting things because they know our search history, our friends, our online shopping, the platforms we use, details passed on when we sign on things, our privacy settings, etc. And then they give you stuff that you like because what you like is things you agree with. And that reinforces it. Right? So this book, now I'm forgetting his name. He also wrote the book Deep Work, Cal Newport. And he takes on a very interesting, he says you should take a 30-day challenge of only using phone, especially phones, but computers and phones for just absolute necessities. Like for me, it's email and WhatsApp. Those are the two things I really have to for my service. And he says everything else, go on a fast. Don't go look at YouTube videos, don't do this. And then he said after 30 days of doing that, then you can bring back into your life things that you really think are bringing value to your life. And the tendency is to bring back a lot less things than you had like that. Anyway, it was an interesting approach. It's called digital minimalism, because we can really waste our human form of life online. We really can. I was doing a devotee kids, teenagers, a group in Washington, D.C. last week, and I asked them approximately how many hours, and it was a day, 3 to 7 hours a day on social media. And it was more like 5 was kind of the average. For those of us who grew up pre-computers, can you imagine 5 hours of your day on something, how we actually filled up our time when we were kids?
TV was there. But
TV was there, yes. That's true. TV was there. Okay. And last, before I take questions, one idea is interesting concept is naive realism, and naive realism is, raise your hand if you honestly, Raise your hand, not yet, but you think, I'm a relatively reasonable person. And I see things relatively clearly. How many think like that? Yeah, most of us, right? Yeah. So then if somebody disagrees with me, there's basically these three choices. Either they have very different group of information. If I give them the right information, they'll agree with me. Or they're really not very bright. Or they're anyabilasita purnam. They're full of material desires, not like me. Right? So this, and see if you sometimes we think like that. Right? I prefer subjective realism, but I'm just quoting the actual word. We have this subjective view of the world, and in my service, in my field, my realization is there's not that many things that are objective. Right? There is some, Krishna's too, Bhagavan Swayam, we accept that as objective truth. Right? Vadanti tat tapa vidas tatam yajnanamabhyam. We accept that as truth. But, even Krishna, he enters the wrestling arena, and everyone's seeing him differently. So who's right?
You're all right.
Yeah. Right? And even, in Dwarka they see him differently, in Mathura they see him differently, in Vrindavan they see him differently. Nanda Maharaj sees definitely different than Srimati Radharani. There's a lot, and then when we even get down to, even, I interviewed some policemen once, and they said if you go to a car accident, if they interview 3 people, sometimes they'll get 3 different reports of what happened. So a lot of stuff is subjective, and that makes it tricky. But there is some objective things. We're not just yato mat tato pat, completely. But it's an interesting thought. So confirmation bias, naive realism, questions, comments, thoughts. Yes. The first 2 ladies, yes. Do we have a microphone?
Yes.
Oh, I'll do it. I need the exercise. Burn off all that prashadam last night.
My current couples counseling teacher, he says there is no place for subjective reality in close relationships. The answer to who's right and who's wrong is who cares.
Very good. Yes. We often say in a mediation, I say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
So we have the one, do you want to be right or you want to be married?
And therefore you equate happiness of marriage.
Well, I'm just saying.
Raise your hand if you know.
Is naive realism
Is what?
Naive
realism, yeah.
Yes. Is very much like narcissism?
Like narcissism?
Yes.
I resemble that remark.
Okay.
Yes. It could be. But it's also just it's somewhat natural. No, narcissism is over way on the, because most things are a spectrum. We often think of things as a light switch, but most things in life are a dimmer. You know what a dimmer is? Right? So the dimmer, narcissism is way over here. Your average naive realist, like us in this room, we're more over here someplace. But this is when we take it to a very unhealthy degree. But yes. Yeah. There was yes. One second.
Well, it is simply the nature of this world to be subjective, because guna karma vibhagasaha, we're born with a certain psychophysical nature, which makes us automatically subjective. Atmaman maniti jagat. That
that's a nice one.
As my mind is made of, that's all I can see. I see the world according to my perception, my subjectivity. And it's not realized person. He sees everything as Krishna's. Doesn't have to deal with his lower perception. He's acquired the perception. Everything is controlled by Krishna. Everything is perfect. He doesn't only. Yeah. But not artificially.
Yeah, this is basically Atmavan Manyate Jagat, basically. Atmavan, I think, Jagat, the whole world should think the same way I think.
Or as That's the way the world is, as I see it.
Yeah, the way is, yes, yeah. Anyone else? Otherwise, I have one more thing. Someone's pointing to somebody.
At the back.
Oh,
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't catch the beginning. I was trying to pack my bags. With what I caught, I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada has taught us Shastra Chakshush. We should try to see our reality through the eyes of Scripture. And he also said, Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. And one thing I've been pondering for the last few years is how this Kala Patra Desh, well, Prabhu, we have to consider time, place, and circumstance. And I've seen how different devotees have used time, place, and circumstance to basically often to dismiss things that Prabhupada said years ago. Well, that's not applicable anymore. Prabhu, like I said to one sannyasi godbrother that was growing out a beard, and I said, but Prabhupada said that, he doesn't even consider us his disciples anymore if we grow out long hair. And he said, oh, but that was then, Prabhu. He said, that was because we were hippies. And Prabhupada wanted us to, get over the hippie hump. But now that we're, mature devotees, now we can grow out our beards and, especially Chaturmasi, etc. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure about that. So time, place, and circumstance, how to know,
Well.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, if time, place, and circumstance allows, we're going to do an exercise just on this exact point. Just on this exact point. So maybe I'll carry on because we are going to do it. I promise. I'm not just taking the microphone away from you. All right. Okay, so let's sound forth. And this is, taking the problem. We talked about some of this already yesterday. Like, because sometimes we choose different parts of Prabhupada that we like, the milk chocolate part. So this is a kind of nyaya, artha kukuti nyaya. I accept things which are very favorable to my understanding and other things I reject. Prabhupada lecture in Indore. And so so reconciling different, I love this quote from George Bernard Shaw. The moment we want to believe something, we suddenly see all the arguments for it and become blind to the arguments against it. Does that pretty much summarize what we've been talking about? Yeah? So there's something called polarity management. We could do a whole seminar, half-day seminar on polarity management, but we'll just, there's two opposing approaches to an issue. Each answer has its upside and downside. So let's just, if I had flip charts, I would write this out. So let's just say tradition and innovation, which is similar to what you're saying, okay? Tradition and innovation. Pakoras and pizza. Yeah, you can remember my paper if you want to fall asleep. Yeah, okay. So imagine us, if I had more time writing this down on the computer, but there's these four quadrants, okay? So in A, what are some of the positive things about being traditional and following, like traditional in ISKCON, traditional in our Vedic culture? What are some positive things? Just popcorn. Time proven. Credibility. Stability. Maintains integrity. Discipline. Future generations. One more? Okay, good enough. And now we would have this, and if we had more time, we would probably take about 8 to 10 minutes to really make sure we got a really thorough list. Okay? Now we go to B. What are some of the challenges, some of the problems would be with sticking to tradition, if we focus on tradition?
Not applicable. Not applicable.
Not applicable?
Not flexible.
Not flexible?
Not relatable.
Not relatable?
Non-improvement. Non-improvement.
No improvement?
Rigid.
Digit?
Rigid.
Rigid.
Exclusive.
Exclusive? Irrelevant?
Stagnant.
Okay, you got enough?
Devoid of growth. Devoid of growth.
Devoid of growth. Okay. So what happens in most organizations, and maybe in ISKCON as well, is something like, first let's do C. What are some positive things about innovation? Relatable? Practical?
Attractive.
Attractive?
More inclusive?
More inclusive?
Expansion.
Expansion. Efficient. Okay, good. What are some downsides to focusing on innovation? Yeah. Loss of values? Dilution, as Prabhu going away from Prabhupada's standards, if we're using ISKCON. What else? One more? Watering down tradition. Okay, so what often happens in many organizations is they start here, and after a while, and tradition, if you know Fiddler on the Roof, and after a while they start experiencing the downside of just focusing on tradition. And somebody says, I got a brilliant idea. Let's focus on innovation. Yahoo! And it's really great, right, for a while. And then what happens? This usually, in a lot of organizations, it's a 20-year kind of cycle or so. And somebody says, I have a brilliant idea. Our problem is we have to go back to tradition. And it becomes this infinity circle. Follow? Yeah? Okay. So what polarity, and a polarity is, this is kind of an important mantra. A polarity is not a problem to be solved, like innovation or tradition. It's a polarity to be managed. Okay, so your problem to be solved is, are we going to serve spicy food on Sundays? Right? That's binary or so. But this is for deeper stuff. Okay, so this was individualism and team play, another polarity. Could I match? I tried to do that before. Oh, it's down there, and that's why I was sorry. Whoops. It's all your fault. Oh, that was a good one, right?
Maybe you're on the wrong tree.
Yeah.
Took a detour.
Okay. Oh, this was the point that I made earlier about unconscious incompetent, then conscious incompetent, then conscious competent, then unconscious competent. What? Oh, you know what happened? I went on a different PowerPoint. Too many PowerPoints, Prabhus. There we go. Yeah, but I couldn't find the thing to make it large. Oh, over there. Maybe up here? Okay. Whoops. What did I do? Okay. So we tend to lean towards one pole or the other. We tend to be overly, if not exclusively, focused on the positive aspects of our preferred pole. So let's say you're a traditionalist. You focus on A and you focus on D. That make sense? Focus on the good things in A and the bad things in innovation, if that's your mindset. Or the other way around, you focus on C and B, the downsides of tradition and the good stuff about innovation. It's a little hard to explain here, but the idea is, so if these were the four quadrants, we want to come up with an action plan that takes the best of both. And as far as possible, you can't completely get rid of it, but as far as possible, the least part of both. So if there is an infinity circle, it's more like this. Does that make sense? And that's, so we would do an exercise, usually takes half a day to a day, and we come up with actions to emphasize both innovation and tradition, and plans of how to avoid the downside of tradition and the downside of innovation. So I said we would do that, and we did. Okay? Now, just for some fun, so the power struggle ensues to make one pole prevail. This is an interesting irony. Listen to this carefully. should either pole win, it could seriously damage the organization. If you only focus on one pole, and it's not only tradition, it could be individualism and authority, or there's different polarities. But if one pole wins, actually everyone loses. Tremendous breakthroughs can occur when we see the polarity for what it is. Oh, and the other really cool thing about doing this is when we're facilitating it and spending more time than we did, we just gave you a taste, is let's say you were a real traditionalist. You also have to participate in what are the good things about innovation, so that everyone's doing that. And so it really gets people thinking more broadly. And they have to also contribute to the downside of tradition. And the innovators have to consider the downsides of innovation. So it gives it, hopefully, it can create that, remember when we all moved over to this slide? It can create that mood in a group. If you're facilitating, and I've done this with 1,000 people, I've done it with 100 people, I've done it with 10 people. Polarity management. Okay, I will. So understanding begins when we can openly acknowledge the potential downside of my pole and express appreciation for the positive aspects of the other pole. We can then come to appreciate each other's contributions to a healthy polarity. Okay, any questions or comments before we, was I supposed to end like an hour ago? I do have one last thing just for fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah, should we do that?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So, contradictory sayings. The following conflicting cliches demonstrate the difference between part truth and whole truth. That's a big one, by the way. You can have, for example, you can write a whole book of Prabhupada quotes, and they're all exactly verbatim, right? But you left out some other quotes. So it's completely, the book is totally accurate, but it's not the whole thing. Okay, so, I don't know, these are kind of small. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, better safe than sorry. They're both truisms, right? The pen is mightier than the sword, actions speak louder than words. Confirmed by the church bells. Look before you leap, he who hesitates is lost. Two heads are better than one. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Great minds think alike, fools seldom differ. Birds of a feather flock together, opposites attract. It's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. The nail that sticks out gets hammered. The best things in life are free. You get what you pay for. You're never too old to learn. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Many hands make light work. Too many cooks spoil the broth. So it's the tyranny of or. We can only have change or stability. So the genius of and. Instead of choosing between A and B, we could have both A and B. And we heard this example, Parbhu was talking about this. What to do with this Ashwatthama guy. Kill him and don't kill him. King Yudhisthira fully supported the statements of the queen, Nakul and Sahadev, the younger brothers of the king, and also Satyaki, Arjuna, the personality of God and Lord Krishna, son of Devaki, and the ladies and others, all unanimously agreed with the king. Bhima, however, disagreed with them and recommended killing this culprit. So, conclusion is, consider openly acknowledging the potential downside of your pole and appreciating the positive aspects of their pole. This is a picture we took of a chemist in India. Look at all those medicines. And Prabhupada writes, in a drugstore there may be many medicines, and all may be genuine, but what is required is that an expert, an experienced physician prescribe medicine for a particular patient. We cannot say in this case, this is also medicine and this is also medicine. No, the medicine which is effective for a particular person is the medicine for him. Pralena parachiyate. So we should become instruments of harmony, not unnecessary polarization. And when we heard this the other day, Shruti Kirti, as he moved to massage Prabhupada's side, asked Prabhupada, how can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle? Prabhupada's eyes closed, and Shruti Kirti continued to massage. After a few moments, Prabhupada opened his eyes and said, that takes a little intelligence. Hare Krishna. So, thank you so much for coming to 3 of my presentations. Maybe I just ask for a couple people, just what's memorable, what do you remember, what sticks out from the last 3 days of what we spoke about today? Hopefully you might remember 5 minutes from now. Yes?
Emotionally toned words.
Emotionally toned words, okay. Yes?
The problems that we may see in ISKCON exist everywhere in the world.
The problems we see in his son exist everywhere. Doesn't mean we shouldn't improve, but they are there, believe me. And like I said, in NASA's 10 times, I hope there's no, NASA has 10 times more conflicts than ISKCON. Be curious, not judgmental. I'm curious how you know it. She has her notes, so she's cheating. Go ahead,
Our
Vishaka.
intentions don't match our impact.
All right, we should try to make sure our intentions match our impact. One more? Yes?
The phenomena of how the polarization cycle.
The infinity circle of polarization. Very good. So thank you very much, Bruce, and please accept my humble obeisances. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.